morning. We start with Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga from the small booklet. From the heart of the Savior of 100 deities of Tushita, on a peak of cloud resembling a clam of extremely white fresh curd, King of Dharma, omniscient Losandrapa, please come here together with your sons. In the sky before me, on a lion throne, lotus and moon, my perfect pure Guru smiles with delight. Supreme field of merit for my mind of faith, please abide for 100 yawns to spread the teachings. Your holy mind has the intelligence that understands the full extent of objects to be known. Your holy speech with its excellent explanations is an ear ornament for those of good fortune. Your holy body is radiantly beautiful with glory renowned. To you who are meaningful to see, hear, and remember, I prostrate. Pleasing drinking water, various flowers, fragrant incenses, lice, scented waters, and so forth. Oceans of cloud-like offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanated, I offer to you the supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtue of body, speech, and mind, especially those opposite to the three vows that I have collected from beginningless time, I confess each and every one with fervent regret from my heart. You strove for much learning and practice in this degenerate age, and made your freedoms and richnesses meaningful by abandoning the eight worldly concerns. Saviour, we sincerely rejoice in your extensive deeds. Perfect pure holy Gurus from the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of the Dharmakaya, please let fall the rain of profound and extensive Dharma upon the receptacle of those to be subdued, exactly as they need. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings, and in particular may it cause the essence of perfect pure Losandrapa's teachings to shine forever. Sajibuki Chuji Medok Tramari Dablishi Nidegyempadi Sangeshindu Mikdewa Idrokunamdak Shinla Chubarsho. By the merits of having offered this mandala to Lama Tsongkhapa and his two sons, may I, my family members, and all sentient beings be able to meet, practice, and actualize the teachings of the victorious one Losandrapa, who had the morality of an eminently pure way of life, was courageous in the extensive conduct of the sons of the victorious one, and accomplish the yoga of the two stages of supreme bliss and emptiness. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. By the force of having fervently requested in this way, hollow beams of white light are emitted from the hearts of the perfect pure Father and Son, and combining into one enter my crown. White nectar, the color of milk, flows from the opening of the tube of white light. cleansing all my sicknesses, spirit harms, negative karmas, obscurations, and the imprints without exception. My body becomes as pure and clear as crystal. Now we recite 5 line Miktsema 3 times. Mikmetse terchen chenrezig drime gempe wampo jampe liang dupo malo jonze sanwedak ganchen kepe tsungen tsongkapa losan drape shabla solwade Mikmetse terchen chenrezig Drime giempe wampo jampe liang dupo malu jonze sanwedak kanchen gepe tsungen tsongkapa losan drape shabla solwade Migmet zewe terchen rezik Drime giempe wampo jampe liang Dupo malu jonze sanwedak Ganchen gepe tsungen tsongkapa Losan drape shabla solwade.
Sangi Chedang Soji Chonum La Chanchu Parda Dang Kapsuchi Dagi Chushi Gebanda Dag Rolam Benji Sangi Drupara Sho Sangi Chedang Soji Chonum La Chanchu Parda Dang Kapsuchi Dagi Chushi Gebanda Dag Rolam Benji Sangi Drupara Sho Sangi Chedang Soji Chonum La Chanchu Parda Dang Kapsuchi Dagi Chushi Gebanda Dagi Rolam Benji Sanjin Drubar Sho Kangi Tuzini Zoni Tawa Tamje Pambichari Tambichun Tenzi Kodam Tela Chanselo Shijin Kyongan Jave Lodrito Kezan Navi Gengele Shisun Tabi Pejela Nidzivi Onde Tembe Tonden La Chansel Namalaye Kedan Lodan Jege Tivon Dana Mi Kedan Dantro Danu Chisam Tamje Kedu Dagi Chuden To Good morning everyone. Chapadili Chambala.
여보들에게 계시라.
Yovara Kili Jute.
No.
Can you ask questions? Maybe everybody want. Yeah.
Morning, thank you, Geshla. My question, I would really love some advice on practices or applying practices for when we're in the face of major life decisions. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. For major life decisions, I have practices that sort of keep me in that sort of peaceful space, but then I have this because it's a pretty big time for me right now. Like I'll be able to find the peace, but then I find panic coming in as well. So this dance between panic and peace, and everything in between. But yeah, I just find it's making me I don't know, I just would like to just be obviously peaceful all the time. If you can help with that, that would be amazing. Thank you. Does that make sense?
Question Chapala.
No. Tamora nyamlin tolia. Nyamlin chiet de tolia ni kalopchina uruchis, and lakpar tuta chik morangi 타주 된데 친구 된데 다 제고야 된데 자그라 미제노가 어딘데 당하니라고 다 냠레 된데 제인데 잠발라 아니 직다 대화지 수수리야 대화지 토윤데 잠발라 한 대당냠도 신나에 지게 요도스 대당냠도 신나다고 지게다 디 아니 딱 간제 신나데 마요라 탑시 가르치 그랬어
냠린 치용데 데오토분도스
다 냠레 된데 지디는 코란 셈바 기우다 소르비도스 다 기우 대당냠도 양 신나에 지레 요도스 다 신나 마요에게 탑시도 가르치 그랬어
어쨌든 냠내래야 rimba mambudo asra 지 다조 냠내스 롱데 간주 최소 계제 단데 돈 시고라스라 헬야 rimba mambu 아지 rimba 세 토슈 아니 제발라 되주시우 땅고야 된대 아니 르동 망부 제고야 된대 단데 세고라 아니 르 땅고야 된디 계시 시고라스라 다디 간주 이거 말았어 간주 미세디 미제디 기부지 용야 냠도 아니 지 냠는 세상에 대바 용거라서 다디야 대 용야라야 지 냠는세다 지 signiyorsa pege tolaya signidose 그 practice 마이바 signilaya 냠 렌세 지파 냠바지 지 레야 간다지 엔디지 시기도스라
So when we talk about the practices or applying the practices in our daily life basis, and when you say to apply practices in our daily life, so actually we are going towards the Dharma practices here. So with regard to Dharma practices, there can be many stages. And highest stages of being able to do or being able to practice Dharma, of course, we need to spend lots of time to practice the Dharma. And also, we need to sacrifice a lot. We need to be able to sacrifice a lot. Sometimes we need to sacrifice our life too. Of course, we will not be able to do this. So now why we are doing these practices, especially the Dharma practices, actually to to be able to have peaceful mind. This is, I guess, our main purpose. So in Tibetan word, there are two words. So it's in English, it's called as practices or practice. In Tibetan, we have two words, nyam len. So nyam means to discard or to degenerate, and len means to take. So here, please try to understand this. In English, it's only, it's translated as practices. I'm not talking only about practices, but please try to understand that Tibetan word here, nyam len. Yes.
Sometimes for understand is good English. Sometimes it's bad English, better than good English. For understand meaning you understand? My English is very broken English. You understand? Yes? Yes, yeah. But it's Nyam Len. In Tibet, it's a Nyam Len. Nyam means, which is Nyam? Some is, I think, some rubbish take to put rubbish box, meaning this. We have some mind, rubbish mind, or good mind. Your Nyam means rubbish mind, take to put rubbish box, and pick up or keep good mind, which is good mind, wisdom, compassion, and or shamatha or bodhicitta or ethics. This is good. Keep this mind. Take in mind ignorance, attachment, anger, put rubbish box. This is Nyamlen. It's okay? Good or not good? Yeah, Nyamlen means this. But before you do Nyamlen or practice, need to understand which is ignorant, which is attachment, which is anger. If you know this, and then you're very unhappy with that, of everybody. If you don't know attachment, ignorant, anger, jealous, and then you always with that going. You're not thinking wisdoms, not thinking compassions, not thinking is ethics, and then always coming problem, right, Shambhala?
No.
Yeah. Yes. Next. 그냥 완전 떨어져 지내라. 이문생이 간다시기도 작당 무슨 이제 잡사죠. 개비 송도 소리야. 로종데 세트위 바나. 데니지 상암 그 남샤 되다지 잠인지 잔주고 쌈다 지 아니 세르로 소비 꼴래 데시게 디릴때 로종친 디주고 네세데 하고 와나 데니 냠는 지엘래 답디고 용사로 왔어. 디마도 베깔에 가버린다 왔어.
So of course then Geshe-la used this Tibetan word Nyamlen. Nyam means to discard, Len means to take. So whatever the negative emotions that you have, try to discard it, and whatever the positive emotions or the constructive emotions that one has, try to develop this. So for this, actually, you need to do some kind of study. You need to first hear, then listen, then contemplate. So what you need to study here is you need to study about the afflictive emotions, negative emotions, especially about the attachment, anger, and ignorance. So three poisonous mind. You just try to understand what is the meaning of these negative emotions, and maybe you can read some texts which is composed by great masters. You try to study these texts, and especially you can you try to study the presentations of grounds and paths which leads or which progresses to the liberation and enlightenment, and you try to study the bodhicitta or mind of enlightenment. And of course, you can also try to study what is the meaning of wisdom, how to develop one's own wisdom. If you try to understand these things by studying, then of course one can practice or one can apply Dharma practices in one's own life. Then it will leads, or our mind becomes more peaceful.
Along a little bit further with the practice, when you take the negative emotion, afflictive emotion, and put it in the rubbish, in this Tibetan practice, is there a magic rubbish that can keep it there and stop it from coming back, like they have?
Need good lock.
Good lock, yeah.
And then not coming back. If no lock, and they're coming back. They have key. His number one key is ethics and trust to and Buddha. This is key. Rajamba.
No.
Yeah. You understand? Yeah. I think for Dharma, it's very, very important ethics and trust to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. This, yeah, it's very, very important. Yeah. Yeah.
I was reading the other day, Geshe, about ethics in Tantra. And one of the parts that interested me, and I'd like you to maybe expand on it if you could, out of the 6 perfections, generosity, morality, patience, energy, concentration, and wisdom, this goes to say that in generosity, those 6 perfections are in generosity as well. So in generosity, you've got the morality of generosity, the patience of generosity, and all the rest of the 6 perfections in generosity. Then you go to morality, and it holds the 6 perfections as well. So would you like to expand on that just a little bit? Because I found it a little bit expansive to when you try and think of the 6 perfections like that. Thank you.
Tanyimachi Quran tepchi lo ins. Tepchi lo ne ni tsomba pudi dinala ta lakpa do ni Quran ta parjin chu kolya tepchi lo ins. Parjin chu de ni jimba tsutim soba tsundu samde sherab di reshas. Ta dinde yundu Quran tsomba pudi ki ta di lo yundu zambala Quran animiksi ki ta jikdela sawa doji hako sons. Ta ineya sewu shuji da hako ma sons. 다 진소 파진 주나래 페나 짐바 타고 짐바이나 짐바 코란이야 짐베 짐바 짐베 수딤 짐베 소바 짐베 준리라니 안데나라 파진 주지 되와 시기도 수딤라야 대신도 시기도 삼데돌이야 대시 시켜로치스
이게 발신 두기 고와디 라고 해서랬다. 발신 두기 고와드라면 되니 짐비 짐바 짐비 설tum 짐비 소바 짐비 총드 짐비 삼데 짐비 셰럽세 아니 고와드 시우차에 자기로 왔어.
So to understand this 6 perfection, within these 6 perfection, for example, like generosity, it can be classified into 6 perfections. So to understand this, first you need to understand what is the 6 perfections. So then you will understand other perfections too.
Benada the person truly lost Bena person truly nangita sultum sage dasra sultum jimbi jimba delaya jimba khorang le lost chip jimbi jimba sage yo maresta jimbi jimba sage yo maresta the nanjing jimbi sultum slawandi sultum le lost chip jimbi sultum sage yungu yo mares jimba tangmalaya Kurangi tim songkoyachi. Yungro ada tim sultim di tim rawasarwa. Lunga ki chawakar shiba inaya tim songya telaya sultim segwarasarwa. Di nanshingi jimbi chawalan jugondi telaya tim songyachi yungyo rasarwa. Tela jimbi sultim laguyoras. Jimba tangmi chawalan jugbi kablaya tim songkoyachi. Tela jimbi sultim laguyoras. Tanda ngomat.
So with regard to six perfections, of course, these are generosity, ethical discipline, and so forth. So when you think about this generosity, so as you have mentioned that it can be divided into six: generosity of ethical discipline, and so forth. So when you think of this, the generosity of generosity, so here you just need to think about generosity only. Generosity is actually the generosity of generosity, and generosity of ethical discipline here is not other than ethical discipline itself. So while practicing the generosity, one needs to abide in ethical discipline. So this is what we called as generosity of ethical discipline. So you just, try to understand like this.
Jimbi chawalan jubi kablaya tim songkoya tindi yungras. Sultan Dembachi. Sultan Dembachi toni Jimbi nyamlelan jugor mato. Ani Sultan Medembachi toni Jimba tambayana. Ani digiyo maras. Tinza ani Jimbi sultum gore said. Jimba tangi kalaya Sultan Dembi toni. Ani Jimbi chawalan jugondi Jimbi sultums. Sultum the Demba, Tim the Demba. Koyede. Yeah.
So at the time of practicing the generosity, one needs to abide in ethical discipline. So one needs to abide in ethical discipline means one need to understand ethical discipline itself. At the time of practicing generosity, it's not something that you can just give that particular substances to some other person. It's not something that you just give that particular substance to other person. Rather, you should abide in ethical discipline too. That is what we call as generosity of ethical discipline.
Tanan sama jongdara. Nan sama jongdara. Kaya marara. And I think 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I went to Maroochydore. They have English class. I went to there. I stayed 10 days in Maroochydore. And then next my room, they have ocean, lake. And one man, he every afternoon take one drop and stay there, and he fishing, took fish, give to his dog. Usually if give to animal food, this is
Generosity.
Generosity. But if you killing fish, give to dog, this is not ethics, no good ethics. Titum the Midimbaresta. Jimbatangadi, Kalatiadi, Sultum the Midimbarasra. The Dindimayimba, Sultum the Demito, Kari Jiguanayanko, Sultan Tumba, Lokso Mayimba, kumako maimba, yang tsesolo nebo maimba, ani chik yang taba chik toni, hasomala jimba tawadi, ani jimbi tsultemis. Tindi samdana yabudu asra.
So when you are practicing the generosity, as I mentioned earlier, that one should be able to abide in the ethical discipline. So one should actually practice the discipline too. So here discipline refers to, while, of course, you are actually practicing the generosity here by giving some kind of food to the dog, but killing fish and you try to give that fish to dog is actually, you are not abiding in ethical discipline. It is not the right way to practice generosity here. So here the right way to practice generosity is that particular substance is not steel. Then also that particular substance, whatever you are, giving to that dog must be, if that is something that it's harmful to other animals, then you are actually not abiding in ethical discipline. You are not practicing ethical discipline. So it's always important to practice ethical discipline, and of course, while practicing this generosity.
Da jimbi penyu toni toni, ani jimba tangyo kala ya kanga yungura asra. Sopo gongwa iti yungura da. Ina ngazu meji laba jimba tangni, ani midi tsu dukja jilaba ina kondro sayagi nyinga yara asra. Ani tsu rewa mebi tol. Pasu su kang te tubati, che dindi kala ya donglin che goya tila ya donglin che tubi tol. Susu ki semdi kondro shamati mashubi tol. Ta jimba mentun tangi tila jimbi sobas lab chogo saris. Jimbi sobas.
Then what about generosity or patience? So here one needs to understand the advantages of being able to practice generosity. So while practicing generosity, of course, at the time of giving some, material things or substances to someone else, so at that time, that particular person might say something bad towards you. So at that time, if you are able to practice patience, then this is what we called as generosity of patience. Then at the time of practicing generosity, one should not have some kind of, strings are attached or some agendas are not there. One should not have some kind of hope. If I give this substance to him or her, then he or she might, give something in return. One should not have that kind of agenda. So at the time of practicing generosity, one should not be, getting anger. So this is, and if you are able to practice patience at that time, this is what we called as generosity of patience.
Ta jimbi tsondru sayadi chowi sambateri. Tsondru silawa. Ta jimba tangwala chosum da denbi toni jimba tangwanti. Ani jimbi tsondru si.
And with regard to generosity of joyous effort, so at the time of giving or at the time of practicing generosity. So you should have some kind of enthusiasm in your mental continuum. This is what we called as generosity of choice effort.
That's something the Chibarada, Piggy, touching Jimbatang Sagu, Jimbatang Purani, Jimbatang Zesum Dipe, any Karso touching. Nipatembo Sumchin, Chick Sam Mayangwa, Montreal Tony, any Chick Manor Salapa, Jimbatang Jara, Tindis any Tony Tangwainuta, Jimmy something still of Chawasares.
And with regard to generosity of concentration, so here one should be able to understand clearly the object of generosity and the person who practices the generosity, himself or herself, and the substances, these three. So you need to understand these three very clearly and try to focus the object, and don't, at the time of practicing the generosity here, then one should not scatter or wander his or her mind, and one should be able to practice generosity. Or if you try to provide some substances to some particular person, maybe that substances go towards the right person. So if you are able to do this, then this is what we called as generosity of concentration.
That Jimby Sherab Jimba Jinsha Lembo Tong Tong Slavandi, Sikamakan to the Oman's Women's Game King. The big Jim Sagi Jinji Jimba Po, the Yongs Zobati, any Dun Tribamato, Rangun Tribachi Yomarasra. Tindri Tachi, Kanji, any Tombani Karsota, the Gent of Slavan, six total Kanji Dindriji Tony, Dindriji Hakovi Tony, any Jimbatang Yate, Jimby Sheriffs. Jimby Sheriffs.
And with regard to generosity of wisdom here, then as I mentioned earlier, that one should understand here the three spheres. First is object of generosity. Second is the practitioner himself or herself, and the substances. So these are what we call as three spheres of generosity. So this is actually very clearly stated in the text, which is what we called as middle way, or entering into the middle way. So here it is clearly stated that at the time of practicing generosity, one should be able to think that object, practitioner himself or herself, and the substances, these three are actually interdependent. These three are not something that existed, truly existence. So one should be able to contemplate on lack of inherently existence, or one should be able to meditate on emptiness. So if you are able to practice this, then this is what we called as generosity of wisdom.
Tandordina, Jinso Passion took in Yamlin Kanda Zilayan Juhin by Naya. Ani Pena Lotong Chegores. The Jimbigita Yamlin was. Sultan Dembach Tim the Mangewach Sultan Dembach Chegu, the Sultan was. Teni kachi tangdulen gogore. Kachi tangdulen matuna nyamlen di tarshimbaji yunguyo marasra. Di sobarendo asra. Adi kaan nyamlen chiya dili ya trosum gogoyo res. Trosum mewa yana yung chituk marda. Kogo penyo da dindik tongyo tongyo trosum gogore. Di zongzhu asra. Trogi sambad. Teni sem tembo chich. Teri nyamlen di chi sanyi di kola samlu kora matan shaja mayimba. Kumi tuni. Di tola ya sem chenpe sung tuya chi. Di samden reshas. Mikba majewa chiya. Teni namcho da tembi to. Che kukur mato. Namcho mena miji chegdu silamni che deba na temri tenguyo mares. Di sherab res. Ta kanchi di inchi mi. Di jimba tsotam soba tsondri samden sherab kari nyamli chegi bayana ya. Di tsang kukur res. Di tsang na 오늘 단내기다 세던 데미 아니 전소 파신 두고 냠내 제투야 덴디지기 아니 네 참마투나 아니 점지 템바지 전소 파신 두고 냠내 제투고요 말레스 디송고다 디송고스라
In brief, then when we talk about the practices of six perfections, so here, of course, we need to sacrifice a lot. We need to spend a lot of time to, especially to understand what is the meaning of six perfections, how one should be able to practice six perfection in daily basis. So when you are practicing the generosity, one should be able to practice generosity in such a way, actually, it corresponds to the discipline. One should be able to abide the discipline itself. And at the time of practicing generosity, one should be able to practice patience also. If you are not able to practice patience, then you will not be able to practice the generosity itself. And at the time of practicing generosity, one should have the enthusiasm in one's own mental continuum. If you have that kind of enthusiasm, then one should be, one will be able to practice generosity continuously. And moreover, one should be able to have, one's own mind, the very stable mind or firm mind. So if you have this firm mind, then you can actually practice this generosity continuously, and one will be able to remember and remember the practices itself. And while practicing generosity, if you are, one should be able to practice generosity in such a way that you use your brain or intellectual mind so that your practice of generosity remains constant. So if you are able to practice in such a way, then your practice, the practices of this generosity and so forth, or the practices of six perfection is very meaningful.
lobe inyingira de sonda kare sulni twetan samden bi gombolan rab chores dan nenga yung sobo din dom jam dan nyamnyong tone song shago ti chaga dosra so chi shu sultum goya ani nyamnen chi bi rimba korum ani nyamnen gu ngo ma ani chima chishin ki tenla phabishabi ani shong tiki dilaya kibi shong laya ani thueba chiya samba chiya o dindi sulni thueta Samden Slawandi, Sem Tembuch, Tenis Sem Tembuch, Gurchoso Mayimba. Ranganzuda Loching Nisam Chitini, and Kaltula Tundri Matana, Gundo Yoras, Tendi Mayimba, Sembatembu Chin. But the Chin that comes tagging by na. Tening one the Tanigita, and it Tanjishu de Agita, and Mariba. Decha konto ngaji thawda la sobe ta chik ani sem nang ta kenyi yung soba pha shye ani sem nang la ya ani sherab da chik chamba nyinji la sobe yung su khang song ba na ani di je la kunzu zusa kora yo ma res ra o dindi ro chi
Here that Master Vasubandhu has clearly stated in one of his texts that try to practice. While practicing, one should abide in ethical discipline. And by abiding in ethical discipline, one should first try to listen to teachings. And after listening to teachings, try to think again and again about these teachings. Then later, one should, of course, try to practice meditation and so forth. So here, then the foundational basis for practice is actually the ethical discipline or morality. And one should also try to understand the stages of practicing, the stages of practices itself, and what is the nature of practices. What do you mean by practices? So you just try to understand this, and if you really want to understand the meaning of the six perfections and so forth, so one should actually listen the teachings, or one should be able to read the text which is composed by great masters, and try to contemplate whatever that you read or whatever you might have received, the teachings through your masters. Then after that, one should be able to, have the mind which is stable and firm. So if your mind is stable and firm, then what happens is you will be able to practice constantly. It's not something that, okay, you try to practice 1 or 2 years, then after that you change your mind and you just completely forget all the details, whatever you tried to learn earlier. And after contemplating on this subject matter, whatever you have received or whatever you read from the text, you just try to meditate on these subject matter. If you are able to practice meditation, then what happens is you will be able to discard or eliminate all the destructive emotions or negative emotions, such as attachment, aversion, and then ignorance, and so forth. So these negative emotions is something that one should be able to discard in the garbage and try to, develop the positive or constructive emotions, so that one will be able to close, or one will be able to, Kishla used this word, big log to that garbage, so that destructive emotions will never arise from your mental continuum.
oh I didn't give answer to Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No. Okay.
자기였더니
No, no comment. No questions.
기실로 자기였더니 되었다.
Yeah. Control last.
알레러스 러스
Takimundo Trita. Tanda Sultan the Kichi song does Tara. Another Chi Jun Shursada the Yon Soba, the Sultan thought the young dosta, the young good. The Jeromichi song Janala. The Tensan Chi Sultan to singing the Ketcha the Nyamshas. The thing is, God is the Ketchachi. The Manyam Badochi, Yungutu, the Inaya. Thing is, Namba Kivalaya, Sultan Med Murwari. The God is the Ketcha the bed Nyamshas. Jeromichi Tindis song Shasra.
So here then ethical discipline or the morality becomes very, very important. And it's because of not able to abide or not able to practice the ethical discipline well, then we are actually not able to practice the Dharma itself. And Lama Tsongkhapa stated that these days we are not actually saying the practices of ethical discipline is something that is degenerated these days. We are actually not saying that ethical discipline is the most important thing, most important practices that one can think of. These days, nobody seems to be talking like that. These days, what's happening is, people seems to tell that, practices of concentration is more important, or practices of concentration is very important. This, people are telling this. People are talking about the importance of concentration, but they are actually not talking about the importance of ethical discipline or morality. If you are talking about the importance of concentration, then of course you need to talk about the importance of ethical discipline too, since ethical discipline is the foundational basis to, the practices of concentration.
Today, aren't we talking about people living their values? Isn't that what we're talking about when we're talking morality, we're talking different things. We're still talking about today, we're still talking about people living their values, and it's important they're living their values consistently.
더 탄대찰라니 땅안 주기 찍 수tim비 돌아 배진 기지 시기여서를 징기도스 가르치는 세나 아니 미드주다 탄대찰라다 내당스 거래다 된다 대윤도 잠발라 아니 수수수기다 통디 말라베 토네 아니 찍 수수기 차와 가리에네 체야직 다 덴데 돌 계지 시기도스 아니 디탄다 아니 기실라기 소야기 탄다 조 수dimre 소야디 베제멘로스
야, 혹시 동단은 그렇게 해서 고아를 일하면 돼.
for this this calendar.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate what you mean by people living their values?
For instance, my values are about community, are about family. Those are the values which are important to me, and living those values in terms of treating family well, treating them ethically, living with integrity, social justice, very strong social justice is very important to me. So they're the values that I see as very important, and living the values. So I think we're still today talking about those values of treating people fairly, equitably. Those are the values that I'm talking about.
다 코랑단다 통 계시셔야지요. 밀리아 통샤단도 시티 계시셔도 조디 아니 지 수수기 남미네다 수수레가 지사 가와이네 델리아 밀파 통샤 아니 남미다 학버도 아니 지조 장된세다 어딘데 돌아다 디라야디 아니 그 통샤세도 어디 계시기요스 팅상 뒤줄라 아니 기실라 있다 당기 디순라 팅상 뒤줄라다 미망치와 수팀세도 계시시면도 땡이 진세야딜라 엔 계시시기도스 답변딜라 고텔라기스
더 커서는 시기 열라고 하더라.
유르라기스
예. 어디 운이 든지지 더 시기 열는다. 더 야구 빼러 왔더라. 야구 빼랬어. 지수열한 그랬어. 근데 누 스타바네. 단 잠을이 나와야. 그래서 곰갸고를 세티 쇼지기 때문에 안주다지 미카시지 많이 봤다. 망부 쇼지 쇼킬레나 만에나래. 오면 출루션다신 곰갸고를 세티 계제 쇼 켜고라서라. 무슨 최고라다. 그냥 술좀 송고를 세티 용어로 주면 됐어. 어디라고 했다. 또 언니기 비기게 아니 술좀 땡인진 시럽숨디 아니 냠는 쪼리 아니 지 비기 시럽 양타와 지용이야 아니 땡인진 양타와 고야 봐 땡인진 양타와 지용이야 술좀 양타와 고그리 세디 아니 뉴뇽 차도 스타지르무지 딘디지 송고도 쓰라 딘디 많이 받대 대상원이 미쳐서야 술좀 송야디 쇼지기 아니 해하고 차가 반 땅안서 제수 일하러 왔어.
So of course, if someone, is living their values, and if they talk about community level or family level, values and social justice and fair things. So if they are talking and if they abide in such values, then of course it is something that we need to rejoice. If you just try to see in this world, people seems to have more interested, or people seems to be taking more interested towards the mindfulness or the meditation, whether you believe religion or not. And even if you believe in religion, then all the major religions, their main emphasis seems to be putting towards the meditation or mindfulness. They are actually not talking about the morality and the concentration or practices of concentration. So what do you think? I guess that, people are not talking about morality and also concentration. They are more talking about the meditation or mindfulness. So, but in reality, one should be able to talk or one should be able to practice the morality, ethical discipline, or morality or ethical discipline, and also the concentration and also the wisdom. So these three becomes very interdependent. And by practicing these three, so it becomes very important role. It plays very important role in our life to actually develop the wisdom part. To develop wisdom, actually, one needs to practice the concentration. If you really want to practice concentration well, then one needs to, of course, think about the practices of ethical discipline. So this is what actually Lama Tsongkhapa, tries to tell. And so nowadays, if the people are living their values, and if they try to think about, if they really think about social justice and so forth, then of course we should rejoice.
단다 상기기 송직려야 즉 창자님 동문쇼세지 창디 돌려야 쇼지기 먼저 맞나 당부 쇼지라 망여라서 그 가르레스 라운드 술좀 두고여라다 술좀 두고여반사 아니 큐니 나무 자원이 매버트 송고도 왔으라
Buddha himself has clearly stated that one should not use the intoxicants, or one should not take alcohol. So this is something very clearly stated by Buddha Shakyamuni. Then it seems that, Buddha Shakyamuni tried to stop this taking the alcohol. Why he said that? Actually, it's quite relevant, because if you really, try to see the importance of practicing of ethical discipline, then you will understand the importance of, prohibiting of intake of intoxicant substances or the alcohol.
근데 단 로마디나로 진바나다 미자차 만슈기 장통고여라서 아 든지지기 아니 슈치모질이야 장통나 더 롱구마레스 라와이나 샘더 포야기 녀가 도스러 비망부 처음에 이게 시기도 삼성도 임바이나야 피 창기 네바 가리 연구여메 낙든드 아니 창기 락스 드고여바 락스 온디 샘 투 드고여바 샘 투서 제라더니 아니 자와 가리 있나 술단 템바 시투고 메비기 아니 얘기는 통바이나 다 창동의 야부문도 삼성지 창동의 야부여마 생애들이야 아니 시기 당들랜 투야 용사라 왔으라
So in this part of the world, especially in Australia, if I, try to say that don't take alcohol. So here, of course, in this part of the world, many are actually taking, the alcohol. So, and if I try to say that don't take alcohol, don't drink alcohol, and don't try to use intoxicant substances, then it seems that, people will take, or people will understand that, oh, okay, he's telling just rubbish things. So, so here, anyhow, one should be able to take into consideration here, one should be able to understand that by taking alcohol, actually, it is not good for your health. And by taking or by using these intoxicant substances, it will actually, it is harmful for your brain and also to the mind also. Too much of taking these intoxicant substances, it will lead to your mind seems to be not working properly at that time. So if your mind is not working properly, then what happens is you will end up doing wrongful actions, either by body or verbal. So if you are able to understand these negative actions or these, disadvantages of, taking or using these intoxicant substance, then of course you will be able to accept that, okay, it's better not to use these intoxicant substances. And if you understand that, and if you have some kind of acceptance, then, if somebody told you not to use these substances, then you will feel, okay, he or she is telling the right thing.
Yep. Yeah, okay.
Venerable Jumper, there's one question online. This person is asking, is ethical discipline the practice of intellectual logic, academic middle way, Nagarjuna Dharma teachings? It means nothing if we don't experience it from the heart and in action, question mark.
Again, chiwashita, tatantanganzo sudim di tsore sungiyores. Andana jita ngaranzo 다 수dim zo imba tenya 다 되게 다 직할세 그러다 기근세 그러다 되게 펜도 가려면 아니 딘조야 지기 리베 토니 하고야 되 케침보레스 아니 단 기슬라야 아니 딩엘라 아니 커서 그래 우마주번나 덴데 숭샤스 아니 티야 커서 나가르주나기 아니 덴데 숭샤스 아니 덴데 진다 덴주 상마 아니 처음에 교도지레스 카르진 케시 나란주기 아니 직셈띵네 무슨 냠레 마체나 아니 덴조 다가스로아스 티오드르시
저디 야우 차서 딱다디서 나가 당한주 냠내 마시 봐야나 군주 시에서도 처음에 교라스 들어와래.
라옹
저디 칼라 군주 간주 냠내 마시 봐야나 군주 시에서도 처음에 교라스나 디타가라레스 저디라와레스 따라 파키지.
Yes. So then your question seems that if we don't experience or if we don't practice these things, whatever they said, then is this the question? If we do nothing, Tarisha, Tarinsa, so Nyamliche would say the lows.
당한주 냠내 마치 봐디 당한주 냠내 마치 봐라스라. 다케저디 갑두 시바나. 계저 direct lawaina nganzu nyamle machibadi nganzu nyamle machibadi nganzu kyen rawasra khunzu she shabadi cho megyo resena nganzu labthu marwas khunzu she shabyo tel teni ani mi mangbu shujila ya pento lan me wa chungyo rawasra ngadi ngidi tiwadi yabuji khomasosda kanji kena labdan jagar ngikeje ngetin labdan tagara imbayna tinga ni kilen thu maresda kilen thu masosra nganzu nyamle machibadi nganzu kyen re 안수 마종아래 마도 콘수 셰샤바디 쇼메와 짜오니네 마레스 나들 람니 토송스라
Yes. So if I try to answer directly, then whatever the practices that we are not able to do, we are not able to practice well, of course, then this is our fault. Then when you say that, ethical discipline, intellectual, logic, or academic, Nagarjuna Dharma teachings. So if you say that, their teaching is not relevant, then if you say like that, then it's not something that, I will be able to accept whatever you said. I'm just trying to answer that directly. I want this last. Because whatever the teachings, especially Nagarjuna's teachings, this is something that, because of that teachings, many people have gained tremendous help towards their life. So, of course, their teachings are something very relevant to us, and they help us a lot.
What do you think?
Is looking at this with a group consciousness in the way of practicing the Dharma? Because I did hear a teaching about, we have name and form, perception, form, feeling, perception, consciousness, but never a group consciousness. And that the teaching said for practicing highest Tantra, that wouldn't be suitable. So is that something that clears up this ethical question? So that, we can't take some things into the path and we can take others into the path?
So I didn't get, what do you mean by this group consciousness?
In like social consciousness or social justice would mean there's some group consciousness, like a mental, what's the name of it? A think tank or a group, a collective consciousness. Mob mentality. Yeah, or cult. Yeah. And I've read and I've heard teachings that say highest Tantra isn't suitable for this type of consciousness.
Highest Tantra is not suitable for this type of consciousness, especially group consciousness, you mean?
Yes.
그냥 티워디 시다랑 고츠마스다. 그런 직전에다 단단한 주디 조디 냠len 제고래. 아니 직기다 가서 그러다. 주dim당 다 딘조 지여로. 아니 딘조 다 쪼디 수수기 냠수 냠의 토네 간지 냠린 체고된 디가라 수수기 락다르 체고 세죠라 어디 돌아다 그 세시도 메로 당한주 남규 계제시도 잠발라 당한주 셰바 콜라 계제시그레 아니 셰바 된데 돌한주 기타 그래서 추 년시 지그레 아니 소다 다나신 한주 기 통주 딘지 상망 한주 기타 한주 남규 장기 여러 왔어 근데 장마쯤도 마스베 단다 꾸기 있다 근데 시기도 지속이 튀어내 한주 이야 셰바세 계제치 지속을 템비 셰바세 유나 다 딘디기 토니 다 디기 아니 같이 그랬으나 가라주 강사 제다버지 람 되기 계제지요 강사 제다버지 람 되다 아니 다는 신체니 지소 돌아 된자 다 딘디기 토니 텔레도데 아니 지금 가라주기 지 나기 토니 셰바인 하바도 나라미 토니 셰바이나 아니 지 지소라 템비 셰바스 딘디 당연히 표준하는 또 딘디 아니 표준 요소 말레스 당원이랑 고츠 마스터 테오디아 코랑기 딘디 시도다 강사 제다바지 람 되기 림바지 요와체 되기 림바지 요레스 이내야 지소 코랑 돈이 지 야게 돼 상주 돈이 티에지로 어다 딘디 아니 베지 유기 마르 팅두스 스타디인스 티오디 세시도 그러시
I don't understand. I'm sorry. It means this question or just you sharing?
clarification
The question is ethics
Yeah.
to have the right view to practice on the path, does that include a collective conscious? Is that right?
설정당 10번이 가르사?
수팀체 양답에 따와체 아니 수수 람냠레 지기로 람냠레 지에들 딱 코랑이 단다 딥다 베주당도 아니 단다고 그룹 컨시어스니스 시도 야메나 컬렉티브 컨시어스니스 시도 다 간지 셰바 상마야 돔니 계시에 다디 단다들 베주 요래 요마레스 일라기스
I think what he's asking, Geshe, is that we all have to apply ethics and not individually. So not just myself or everyone has to sort of apply ethics. Is that correct?
Your translator?
Very bad translator.
Give him. Use this, please.
I'm thinking along of the three kayas. Dharmakaya, yeah, Sambhogakaya, like that. And that, to me, I don't see a collective consciousness because it's clean, clear. And then whatever arises is only in my mental continuum. I'm not bringing a concept of everybody else's into the path. I'm trying to explain collective consciousness. That it's everywhere, different culture, different groups, they have different ethics, moralities, but some of them can't come on the path because they're upsetting themselves or they have harm in their nature. I don't know how to explain it. It's very tricky.
고사.
당아란주니 구숨 토베치 기지시고라스 딱간지 람 냠린 제발라더니 구숨 토베치 따디 구숨 톱세야디 랑기 구숨디 랑기 땅원도 체세야디 강사 수수 게르기 원도 체 계절레스 아니 지소더니 계지시바이나 따디스 요서다 콘수 강사 게르다 칠르다고 사모담바이나 시바디 카레나 용시그레스 가시기 구스문도 제라고 말했어. 수수수기 람 카야로아지 아니 냠술렘 발라테니 코랑기 양원도 제 고반데 코랑 가가지 요랬어. 강사 게르다고 짐바이나 아니 수수기 땅안서 진소 파진 주다 된소 냠술렘 발라테니 구스문도 제세 디케제데 셰초레스 게르토니시나 집에 돈이시 연도 잠발랑 안주기 아니 지 수팀 당하다 된소 창말라 가르스고다 린데 땅사스네면도 된 창말이 녀고 말했어. 베진딜라고 있어.
당한주 단다 아니 추 돈이 셰데디 아니 출템디 난주 롱비기 팀 말아왔어. 아, 지속 팀 인생의 템포 체계가 말아왔어. 난주 지속 팀을 봤어. 난주 미강가 디인지미 키고에다 딜라고요 말아왔어. 이게 그냥 지워디 고바이 나라 딜라고요 말아왔어. 개지 미치기 추 남다 제국이야나 아니 그게 추 팀이잖아. 상기의 추대 남다 진등인지 바나 그냥 팀 디와는 로거스 라위어 마도 그냥 추 제나리 마제나리 그냥 팀디 제국 그래서 라고 말했어. 딩안주 라비아기 디코리오 말했더라. 그냥 안주 오스트레일리아 롱베난 주 서비스라 오스트레일리아 팀디 그냥 키고 그러다스. 마켄 초고 말했어. 라비아기 오스트레일리아를 탑당하셔라. 딘리는 안주 탑당해 말아. 딜라고 말았어. 난저 이게 최냠는지 넘버 산지 최 우텔이야 주기 임바이나 디 팀지요레 디키고레스 디 마케바이나 아니 이 베네 창동야로 디 팀디 마케바이나 창동바이나 셈투도레 셈투바이나 비 최시에 난신 계란 제투 마레스 라고레스더라 디세우 셰마도 디야고여서 말해
Plus. So here, when I talk about ethical discipline, concentration, and wisdom, especially the morality, the practices of morality, so it is something that, I'm trying to say in the context of those practitioners, especially if you are, practitioner, or if you are Buddhist practitioner, so then one should actually, if you are able to practice well, if you are able to abide morality, concentration, and so forth. So this is what I'm trying to say here. If I am not wrong, if I, get your question well, then so when I say that one should abide in the morality or the ethical discipline, it is something that those practitioner or Buddhist practitioner, then one should abide, or one should try to practice ethical discipline. This is what I'm trying to say here. And when I try to talk about ethical discipline, this discipline is not something that it covers all the nation. It's not something like that. And I'm not trying to convey this here. So if you really want to practice the pure Dharma, and if you accept to follow the Buddhist Dharma, then what I'm trying to say here is, so whether you believe in religion or not, it is completely dependent on yourself. So you want to practice Dharma or not, it is up to you. But when I talk about the ethical discipline, so this ethical discipline is something that one should abide, especially if you are Buddhist practitioner. So let me give you an example here. In Australia, do as Australian do, or in Australia, one has to follow the rules of the Australia, whatever rules and regulations, whatever, Australia government has. This is something that we need to follow. So if you want to practice, or if you want to practice well, then one needs to abide in ethical discipline. If you are not able to abide this or practice ethical discipline, then one will never be able to progress. The progression of grounds and paths, where it leads to liberation and complete Buddhahood. So, for example, then one ethical discipline, one morality here is not to take intoxicant substances. So if you use intoxicant substances, it leads to the your mind seems to be not stable. So if your mind is not stable, then you might act in very wrongful way. And you will not able to practice the Dharma. So that's why I'm just telling this to you.
Okay. Hope so. Thank you so much. Question is number. Sanjima you choose your mind.
Lawyer.
Yeah. Okay. No.
So I will stop here.
Final Amrin prayer. From my two types of merits vast a space that I have amassed from working with effort at this practice for a grand length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by my practice, using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion. May I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have destined them. May I uphold the Buddha's teachings for a very long time, with my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined. May I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be grounded boundless peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time, by even this graded path to enlightenment completed, due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtues practices, may he always be assisted by the Mighty One, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. And pray for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life, and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And pray for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and son, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable venerable Guru, to you I make request, while striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss! Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious one, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in a glory for fortunate disciples. Thank you very much. And we also have a meditation at 1:15 today for those who would like to join in the Tara room. And Geshe-la's public teaching will be this Sunday at 10:30. Thank you.